The Shannara Chronicles is a post-apocalyptic epic fantasy series based on the best-selling trilogy The Sword of Shannara by Terry Brooks. It has a lot of familiar tropes, characters, and storylines that epic fantasy fans will recognize. These parts of the show, which debut on MTV and is now available on Netflix, make it more interesting to watch instead of making it less interesting. MTV's The Shannara Chronicles is a comforting watch for epic fantasy lovers. Set 1,000 years after the end of human civilization, the story is about an 11-year-old princess named Amberle, Poppy Drayton, the half-elf chosen one named Will, Austin Butler, who recently starred in Luhrmann's Elvis, and a thieving human named Eretria, Ivana Baquero, who played Ofelia in Pan's Labyrinth. The three must go on a magical quest together to stop Elvis, an old tree that kept demons locked up, from dying, and stop this evil from getting away. It is clear that the series has taken a lot from J.R.R. Tolkien's work and other high fantasy book series. Even though it's not as good as the adaptations of high fantasy giants like Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, and The Wheel of Time, audiences will still enjoy it. The Shannara Chronicles is filled to the brim with fantasy tropes and cliches. Will is the innocent farm boy who grew up away from the rest of the world and didn't know that he was meant for great things. Eretria is a cynical thief with a questionable sense of right and wrong who has had to fight to stay alive in this harsh world. Then there is the princess, who isn't like other girls and is stubborn and strong-willed. She wants to be known for her skills and talents. One of them has a magical item that only they can use with the help of Elvis, the last druid, who is their guide and teacher. The Shannara Chronicles is a fun fantasy adventure. The story is also not very original. A group of adventurers work together to go on a quest to fight an old evil that has just come back to life. It does, however, give you a big world full of magic, monsters, and fantasy races like elves, gnomes, and trolls, all of which are named after creatures from old stories. People will think of Dungeons & Dragons and its classes because Eretria is a rogue, Amberle is a cleric, a chosen one from God, which can be the Elcries, Will is a sorcerer, he gets his power from a Shannara bloodline, and Alanon is, of course, a druid. Some people might not like that these tropes are in the Shannara Chronicles, but there are other things about it that make it worth watching. Characters have backstories that give them depth, especially the heroines Eretria and Amberle, who have free will and fight against what society says they should do. Amberle broke an elven rule by being the first woman in decades to run the gauntlet, a test to become one of the chosen who protect the Elcries. There is also a lot of interesting drama, politics, and mystery on the show, which is why it has been called the teen-friendly Game of Thrones. The landscapes are shown in beautiful wide shots that also remind people that the movie is set in the future. It does this by showing famous American landmarks. The Seattle Tower is the first one to show up. It is old, rusty, and falling apart, which firmly places it in the future after a nuclear war. By the end of the season, these characters have gone through dangerous places and fought tough battles to save the day. Season 2 will continue and finish the story. Overall, this means the Shannara Chronicles doesn't offer anything new or groundbreaking. Instead, it takes viewers on a familiar journey that they will find both comforting and enjoyable. Sadly, the Shannara Chronicles was canceled by Spike TV. Spike TV canceled the Shannara Chronicles not long before it officially changed its name to the Paramount Network. In 2016, MTV showed the first season of the Shannara Chronicles. It quickly became one of the most watched original shows on MTV. MTV picked up the show for a second season, but that season was shown on Spike TV, which is also owned by Viacom. Shannara was a hit, but most of the people who watched it were older than MTV's target audience of high school and college students, so it was decided to move it to a channel that might be a better fit. Also, MTV has quickly stopped making original scripted shows in order to put more emphasis on unscripted shows. Unfortunately, the Shannara Chronicles' high rating on Spike TV didn't last. Even when DVR viewing was taken into account, Season 2 averaged less than 500,000 viewers last fall. TV Guide says that Viacom canceled Shannara because Spike TV was about to change its name to the Paramount Network. Even though Season 3 of the Shannara Chronicles won't be on Spike TV, fans may still have some hope. Deadline says that the producers of Shannara Chronicles and the company that makes the show, Sonar, have already started talking about how to find Will a new home. The Shannara Chronicles is currently available on Netflix, so the streaming giant is being looked at as a possible way to keep the series going. Amazon, another streaming service, is also being looked at. Fans can hope for the best, but most of the time when a show is canceled, no one else steps in to save it. Fans shouldn't get too used to the idea that the Shannara Chronicles will continue somewhere else, since these situations are still pretty rare. Even though Season 2 of the Shannara Chronicles had a big drop in ratings, critics have praised both seasons of the fantasy adventure show. If another TV network or streaming service does decide to save Season 3 from being lost, this prestige factor will probably be a big reason why. The Shannara Chronicles Season 2 suffered when moved to Spike. The first episode of Season 1 of the Shannara Chronicles was watched by more than 7.5 million people, and the season kept getting good ratings all the way through. The show was filmed in New Zealand, which kept its ties to classic fantasy movies like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. John Rhys Davies played a major supporting role on the show, and Manu Bennett, who was also on the show, played Azog the Defiler in the Hobbit movies. When Season 2 of the Shannara Chronicles moved to Spike TV, its ratings pretty much went down the drain. The move to a different network let the show get a bit darker, but Season 2 ratings never went above 310,000 viewers, which was a big drop from the first episode. Low ratings and high production costs made it clear that the Shannara Chronicles Season 3 wasn't gonna happen. After Season 2, Spike TV, which is about to become the Paramount Network, canceled the show. The real reason why the Shannara Chronicles was canceled. The Shannara Chronicles may have lost some viewers when it moved to Spike, but the show may have already been doomed by bigger problems. In May of 2017, it was announced that the show would move from MTV to Spike. Season 2 aired from October to November 2017. Spike's parent company, Viacom, said in February 2017 that the network would change its name from Spike to Paramount Network. The new name started on January 18, 2018, just 2 days after it was announced that the Shannara Chronicles would end. As the network changed its name from Spike to Paramount Network, it started to focus on more adult-oriented content. The Shannara Chronicles, which was geared towards young adults, no longer fit their style, which is probably why they canceled it instead of waiting for the fans to come back. Solar Entertainment, which makes the show, tried to sell Season 3 of the Shannara Chronicles to different networks. Some fans hoped that Netflix, which streams the show, would pay for it. Unfortunately, it looks like those efforts were for nothing, and the show is now officially thought to be dead. After getting off to such a good start, it's too bad the Shannara Chronicles ended so quickly. But there's so much material in the series that a movie or TV reboot could still happen in the future. Finally, how Stranger Things 5 can justify Hopper's return. Jim Hopper's death in the Season 3 finale of Stranger Things was the perfect end to his story arc, and he should have stayed dead. Stranger Things Season 4 shows that Jim Hopper, David Harbour, didn't disintegrate like the Russian guards, but instead was locked up in Kamchatka. This ruins the ultimate sacrifice. As a horror sci-fi show, Stranger Things has never been afraid to show a horrible death. Even though characters like Dr. Alexei, Bob Newby, and Eddie Munson are very likable, Joseph Quinn, Hopper's fake-out sacrifice in Season 3 takes away from the overall high-stakes horror tone that the next to last season was going for. It also takes away from the darker atmosphere that is needed for the end of the series. Jim Hopper is more of a filler plot in Stranger Things Season 4, as he doesn't add much to the main story, but his presence does give Team Hawkins more options for the next and final season. There will be a father-daughter team up against Vecna, Jamie Campbell Bower, a death that will hurt just as much and more. Whatever happens in Season 5 of Stranger Things, it has to be better than Hopper's fake death scene, or it will be all for nothing. Well, that is all the time we had for today. Comment below whether or not it should be renewed for a third season. Till next time, cheers!